Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Performance Zone, the special edition of the Performance Zone. This is week 2. Last week, I have my special guest with me here, Pat Grosse from Australia, from Yorkshire in England via Australia. You're going the long way around to be here today, again, as always. And last week, we had a really interesting call, and actually, we're going to make that available to you. We'll get, if not today, the next session we have, we'll let you know how you can get access to that to get the recorded calls. And Pat, give us a refresh. What we talked about last time?
Oh, do you know what? I've completely forgotten. It was a week ago.
Why you can't start building on the 10th floor, guys. We talked about, how a lot of people, it was great content. And no, in case you haven't noticed, and if you watched last week, and if you're noticing this week, these are not structured. These are kind of fly by the seat of our pants with topics that we think are important for people to know about. So that's why you kind of see the going back and forth. And I want to throw Pat on the spot there for a minute. But what we spoke about was why you can't start building on the 10th floor, about why you have to have a foundation. And oftentimes, especially in today's world where people want to do everything so fast, accelerated, the microwave mentality about, well, let's see, if I start my business on Thursday, I should be a millionaire by Monday morning. I've heard stories of people that do that, but that's the exception, not the rule. But oftentimes what people do is they're already thinking about steps 4, 5, and 6, hence the term starting on the 10th floor. And they haven't thought about steps 1, 2, and 3, and even what precedes steps 1, 2, and 3. And that's kind of why we're here, because there are things in the entrepreneurial world and in the business world, the self-employed world, I guess, is what we're talking about, along with entrepreneurs. And yes, there is a distinction. We'll get to that in one of our future sessions here on the special edition of the Performance Zones. But today, so last week we talked about the precursors, certain things that people have to know, and what you want to know. Because I'm telling you right now, and I do this with people on a regular basis, when they think, oh, but I've got all that in order. I said, or do you? And when we go back and ask a few questions, we can often find that they're missing certain pieces. And this is not just you guys. Believe me, the reason we know this kind of stuff is because we've been through it. We've been through those things. We've been through the trenches. So part of why we're here is to show you that there are better ways, to show you that there are options, alternatives, and there's a knowledge base, not just anything you find on the internet, but real, useful, tried in the trenches knowledge and information that's out there that you can utilize that will help expedite your success in your business. So that was last week. And this week, what we're going to talk about is focusing on what you really, if you're watching that, really want. Because oftentimes people get started and they think they want something. And right, Pat, they find out what they really want is something else, but they've been focusing on what they think they want, what the nice to haves, but not the must haves. And, focus, this is going to take, there's so many different ways we can go on focus, but and actually there's a couple things that you have I want to get to in a minute, but what are your talk about focus and how important it's been to you?
Extremely important. Look, a couple of weeks ago, I just want to start with a quote that I found, because one of the things I really do is do myself, my self-education. And I was reading a book, and the Prosperity Bible, and in there is James Allen, who said, and I was thinking about this just recently, because let's just get to right now. I mean, okay, we're into the new year. I know these things are not supposed to be time so related, but we just passed the new year. People do New Year's resolutions. And I read this just at that time. So I have to put the context. The foolish wish and grumble, the wise work and wait. And that's where I found with focus is that it's not just about putting it out there that you want to do, something to happen, or you start doing things. You've really got to continue. You really have to know the goal. Focus on the goal. See it, feel it, hear it. And make sure that goal is, you could say, I want a new piece of equipment. I want to focus on that. I know somebody at the moment who's looking for a new piece of equipment, and they're focusing on that. And I'm going, but is that what they're looking for?
Right.
Why do they want that equipment? Are you focusing on what you really want? So it was just a timely reminder that we're having this conversation today, and it sort of opened up my mind a lot, because just before Christmas I was undergoing a procedure in an MRI machine in a tunnel, and I received a bit of upsetting news before I went under, and I was told I was going to be under for nearly an hour, which freaked me out in 2 sessions. First time I went under, I had no focus. Okay, I went in there, my mind was open, and everything came in. All the fear, all the little devils on your shoulder, everything. And I built myself into a real panic. And that's what people do. It's not so much even focusing what you want. You have to focus on how you're going to get there.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to get back to the James Allen quote. You focus on how you're going to get there. And to me, that was, my goal was to get out of the tunnel at the other end, in a peaceful state of mind. Well, obviously I didn't achieve that first time because I had no focus on how. I knew what I wanted, but I had no focus on how. But the second time I went in, because I felt as though I was being sort of blackmailed into going back into the second time, because they said, if you don't do it, you'll have to do it again later. So this time I actually had a focus. I knew I had a time limit. They said it was going to take about 15 to 20 minutes this session. So immediately I thought, what do I have available? And I had my hands. So I set about focusing on each finger 60 seconds. And I had a goal of doing 15 fingers. Well, obviously my version of 60 seconds is a lot longer than the real minute.
Right.
So I was really, so I was really happy to come out after 13 minutes and, not a problem. So it really brought home to me. And I think for 2022, that has actually taught me that on my desk, for example, I'm used to sort of doing a little bit of that. One of these people that tends to have a few balls in the air at the same time. But actually, if you actually focus on what you're doing, not checking your email or having a second distraction, but focus, it's amazing in those blocks of time just how much you actually get done. You still get the work done, but you're not stressing yourself doing it.
Right. And you get, and that's the thing. I love when people talk about multitasking, and I say, I don't, that's not me. I have to focus on one thing. But it's kind of like, we're talking about, focusing on what you want. And then you're talking about that experience in the MRI machine. Again, I forget who said this quote. It could have been Seneca. I'll have to double check. But the quote is, we suffer more often in our imagination than in reality. And yes. That's how strong the focus is. And I dealing with people as I have for the last 30 plus years, one of the things and this is something that my mentors drove home to me, and I've read in books, and I've seen in other videos, and different speakers and all the seminars I've attended, you hear it from so many different people in so many different ways. And ultimately it's that thing of, look, because people talk about, well, then I won't have any problems. And it's like, no, you're always going to have problems. You're always going to have problems, right? There's a young guy that I was on the phone, I was on a Zoom call with shortly the hour before this. And he's a very successful young guy. And we were talking about that. And he said, look, when he sold his businesses, and he had some very successful businesses. He sold them for a very pretty penny. And he's probably in his 31 or 32. I mean, he'll never have to work another day in his life, but he's looking for things to do, and he wants to help people and all this. And he said, yeah, I've still got problems. They're just different sorts of problems. So the thing is, like, don't focus on not having problems, focus on solving the problems. And that the way you can do that is focus on what you want, and because what you focus on, it's like the old magnifying glass when we were kids, right? If you got them did you guys have Cracker Jacks growing up? Was that a thing for you guys?
Yes.
Yeah. And they used to have the little prize in the box, right? Like caramel corn and the prize in the box. And oftentimes we'd get a magnifying glass, right? And our big thing was to burn little holes in pieces of paper, or to bunch up some grass, or to take some insects or something. And, not that, there's cruel, I guess, to the insect, but the point is, you hold the magnifying glass, you can't take the magnifying glass and go around in a circle like this. And our minds often get like that. We call it monkey brain, right? Where your mind's jumping around and jumping, all the different things. And that just doesn't solve anything. But if you hold that magnifying glass still, even the cheap little one coming out of the Cracker Jack box, it will do its job. It will focus the sun on the one point, and you'll get a result. And that's another thing, right? Focus on the processes, not always the result. You got to get the process going, because the process is what gives you the result, right? But then, And if it's not the result you want, you change the process, right? That's all that kind of stuff. But today the challenge is this little critter right here, right? The lovely little cell phone, the notifications, the, I mean, it's so many different things and these are more personal distractions. How hard is it? Like I've got the mute. I think I've got the mute on. Let me double, or oh, no, I don't. There, do not disturb. Because those things you hear people hear the little ping. And it's so often out of Zoom, you can tell they say, no, I have the do not disturb on. Then I don't hear the ping, but they turn the volume down and you can see their eyes go like this. And now in that moment, now that tells me they're not thinking about what we're trying to accomplish. So those are the personal distractions. There's business focus, right? There's personal focus, business focus, social focus, all these different things that we want to have happen. So I guess with the personal side, what do you do? Because as you said, you've often got 3 or 4 balls up in the air. And I know this from the last couple of years that I've known you. You've always got something going on, multiple things going on. And that's just on the business side, let alone what's going on with grandkids and children and, life. And that's just normal. Forget, now throw COVID on there and it makes it all crazier. What are some of the things you do to keep your focus? Let's just start with the personal side, to keep Pat focused on what Pat needs to do.
Set aside time, block off the time to do it. But I'm still learning. I mean, the older you get doesn't mean you get that much wiser.
Don't say that.
You got me thinking. Actually, you got me thinking about the experience when I was actually going up a mountain. And now you will know this more in the sports area, which you've been talking about. But I'm not the fittest person. Certainly need to lose some weight. I was up the mountain with my daughter and my granddaughter, and we had to this last bit. It's Mount Buffalo, and it's like it's called the Horn. And to get up there, it's a steep sort of climb. It's not, I mean, people do it. It's not sort of one of these for advanced only. But I got to that point and I was really going, I can't do this. I can't do this. I knew what I wanted to be. I knew what I wanted to do. But again, the demons were saying, I can't do this. But this is what I do in my life. This is why I'm relating to it. Because, people say, if you say you can't, you can't. That's rubbish. Because it's like I'm having, my subconscious overtakes my conscious. And my subconscious says, just get on and do it. So I actually, I'm going up all the time going, I can't do this till I actually get to the top. So I'm just saying to you that's why I do it. And now you've mentioned it, in lots of situations where I can't make my mind up whether I want to do something or not. In the end, I suppose I just let myself, my inner self, make the decision for me. If that makes sense.
It does, because the subconscious, that it's often said that the subconscious is like a 7 to 9 year old child, and you can't tell them not to do stuff or that they can't do stuff, because the child in us will just go do it. And so sometimes it's good to turn that over to the child. I mean, and to remove the barriers. I mean, it said, you mentioned the sports area, and if you don't know me, if this is your first time seeing me, I have a background in the martial arts. I competed in Taekwondo for many years, and then I coached later. And one of my skills, and I use this in my business today, and one of my beliefs and my missions is to help people get the most out of themselves. Where there was this young kid named Richard On. I don't know if I may have told you this story. But Richard was one of our young budding athletes in the late 90s, amazingly talented young man, but had a mental block because he focused on the mental block. He focused on that he could not make it through the quarterfinals of an event. And the thing in Taekwondo at the time, the way it was structured was if you made the semifinals, you were guaranteed a medal. So at least a bronze medal, because we would give 2 third place, 1 second, and 1 first. And Richard had all the talent to get there, but he couldn't make the jump, because talk about monkey brain. He was always focusing on, he was overthinking what he had to do in the ring or overthinking what his opponent was going to do. Right? He was total head case. So we went to Barcelona, Spain. We had to Spain, went to 2 tournaments. The second tournament was the big one. It was the city tournament in Barcelona. And what happened was it was it was a top tournament, just a step below what would be the Grand Prix circuit today. Because Barcelona is a major city, access from all over the Mediterranean. You'd have teams from Tunisia, from France, from Italy, all over Spain would come to Barcelona to this particular tournament, which made it a very high level tournament. So Richard, I love this story. We were in the quarterfinals. I'm coaching him. And I said, okay, Richard. And I said, I'm looking at the guy. I said, see that guy over there? You're about to fight. I said, you make it through this, you're in the semis. You're guaranteed a medal. I said, that guy, I fought his instructor, his coach. He and I fought in 1985. He was an 88 Olympian. I know what this kid's going to do. I know. I said, this is Spain. I've lived here. I know these people. They're my friends. I know their style of fighting. And I went and I built it all up. Like, I know everything there is to know about this match. And he's looking at me with, like a kid in a candy store going like, you're going to give me the secret to beat this guy and I'll get through. But he was still in his own head. You could see his movements were tight. His breathing was shallow and all this stuff. And I said, Richard, I want you to look around and see all these people. They're watching this match right now. They're watching you. They're watching me. And after I told him again about all the different things that I knew, I said, the most important thing that you have to remember as you step out onto the mat is make me look good. And I sat down in the chair. I didn't say another word. And he looked at me and just was like I was giving him all that information and then I pulled it back. And what I did in that moment, and it was just at the time, I didn't know why I did it. Now I look back and, okay, thank you. The universe was giving me the right things to say. He took a big, deep breath. All that craziness left his head and he focused on me because he wasn't focusing on losing. He wasn't focused because, I can place the blame on, I allowed him to place any future blame on me if he lost. He knocked the kid out first round, went to the semifinals, won that, made it to the final, got a silver medal. And from that point on, went on to become a 6-time U.S. national team member, a Pan Am Games bronze medalist, a Pan Am Taekwondo champion, and a World Cup bronze medalist and he's just, and he tells that story today too. He says, I'll never forget. I was so mad at you. I was so disappointed. But I relaxed and I stopped focusing on the negative. And he went out and it allowed him to go do what he did. Now I didn't really do anything except get him out of his own way, but it allowed him to that. It took the focus off of all the stuff that could go wrong. And that's the little thing. That's how powerful focus is. One small little shift can make the entire difference. Like it did with your hand. You focused, you counted fingers. Your counting of a minute was much longer than what an actual minute was. Right? So after, what was it, probably 20 or 25 minutes, you only counted to 13 minutes and you were already out. And yes. That was quick because it's all perception, right? It's all, that whole timing is perception. So, and folks, that's kind of what if you're watching this, we're kind of talk about the one thing that can accelerate you is controlling your focus. Now, how do you do that? You can do it with questions. You can do it with diagrams. You can do it with a checklist. You can do it with a template. Like if you're doing a business, and Pat's got some strategy stuff on business strategies, business preration. What do you call it? The one is it's not the Bible, but what do you call
Entrepreneurial.
it? No.
The DI strategic planning toolkit.
Yeah. The strategic planning tool. It's guys, this is so simple. It creates a step by step. So what does that do? It allows you could actually put it in writing. You can put it into the app. And actually, we should tell them how to get the app. Is it in the App Store?
Oh yeah, and no, that's not. But you're talking about are you talking about the business, building the business case? Because we've got that as well. Okay. I've got a few tools around.
Well, then to do the strategy, that's different. You can email Pat. We can give you her information, but it gives you a step-by-step, things to do when it comes to business. Now you could apply that. You could probably modify it and do it to your personal life if you're trying to get healthy. See, because the thing is, your focus and your thoughts, like we've talked about this, you can't plant watermelon seeds and expect to get roses. So if your thoughts are, I can't do this, I'm not good enough, I'm not capable, somebody else beat me to it. Like the book I'm writing, right? I think I told you I'm writing a book with help, somebody else is helping me. And somebody else came out, they already published their book and it's almost identical. Now I know they didn't steal anything from us, but it's gonna, so guys, don't wait. Now I can sit there and take that as oh no, somebody else already published. I'm still publishing my book. We'll just have to make some tweaks and do some different things, but guys, there's no reason to stop. So my focus now is to get my book finished, see how and look at the different steps on how we're going to publish and how we're going to market. Because I will say that I've read a little bit of her book, and mine's much funnier. It's much more, if I do say so myself. But that's the thing, is the whole concept of where you place your focus determines the results you're going to get. And if you have a step-by-step plan, whether it's for business or for personal, that's what's going to accelerate your results.
Can I go back on that one? Because this is what I find in strategic planning. I mean, we built our business working with the not-for-profit sector, and they are, pretty good when it comes to understanding the concept of strategic planning. But because I live in regional Victoria in Australia, I sometimes get approached by some business owners. Okay, and this is where I find, which I find is interesting, is that first of all, the focus of any business owner is that vision. And the number of businesses that people go into business without actually that end goal in mind. How on earth can they do the business and have the energy to achieve those steps if they don't actually know where they're going? So, that's so to me,
it's kind of like having your money set aside, your clothes packed, the car's gassed up, and somebody says, you got the time off of work, and you say, I'm going on vacation. I got the money, I got the car, I got the time off, I got my clothes packed. Where are you going? I don't know.
And that's an example of you're focusing on getting the car, the tires, all that sort of stuff. You focus on them, but what you really want to focus is where you're going.
Right. That's the key too. Like when you have that vision, and I'm a big fan of having the vision, goals, and objectives, but if you don't have a vision, Pat is exactly, that is so spot on, because often I see that so much. I mean, and again, I've been there. I was that guy where I thought I had to look in the details first so that I could get there, but no, it's not how it works. You got to know what the overall result is, and also to tie it in with your values. Why is it important to you? What's really important about that vision that you accomplish it?
Yes. And then I'm going to add, because people think vision, mission, values, one thing that they tend to forget, or that it's easy to forget, is just to strategically focus on what do I need to do to get there. And those are your priorities, and they are what needs to change, what needs to happen, and then what do I need to do. So for instance, if you're in a business and you want to get to this point, you've got a turnover of blah blah blah, you've got a market of blah blah blah. So what you need to do, what needs to happen is you need to have a good marketing plan, for example. You need to have good staff. You need to have you might have your systems, your policies, procedures are all over the place. So in your business that you need to have a focus on them as well. So what do you need to focus on? Okay, again, the word focus. So to achieve where you want to go. And then from that focus, if you want to focus on your policies and your procedures that set in your systems, then you can break that down into the priorities. What we need to do this, we need to do this. And that gets you've already in your mind, again, you're feeding your subconscious here of, what needs to happen. Now, there's some numbers of ways, and we talked about this last week about if you've got to have a plan in place, you've got to keep visiting that plan on a regular basis.
Right, you got to see if it's producing the results you want, right? I mean, if it's not, you got to change it.
But at the same time, because you've done it, you've instructed your subconscious to focus on it. So I found that, I was talking about some things, and I put this vision came out, was 10,000 community entrepreneurs in 75 countries was there. And then, what needs to happen? We need to have an international focus, right? I've just given an example here. And then, okay, so what comes along is an opportunity to be part of a network that's international. Now, I wouldn't have put that down initially. I just knew what I needed. And then the opportunity comes along and it gels, it sticks like glue to that focus that you're thinking about. So if you've got those focus areas that you need to work on and put them in yourself, and you know what they are to achieve the ultimate focus, and that ultimate focus may be down the line. So you probably would have a focus in 3 or 5 years time of where you want to be there. That's just as well, all and well and good. At
Right.
least you know where you're going. And
Yeah.
and you say the focus becomes the driver.
Right. And that's why it's so important. That's why I like the strategic planning and you know, the setup you have, because it actually, from that, you actually design the steps. You start going out and then working backwards. You end up designing what steps actually, because most people, they get to a point, what I have found with the clients that I've worked with throughout the years is that they'll get to a certain point and then they come up with, I don't know what to do next, because they've gone part way. And they've not gone right, because what's that lead to? And then what's that lead to? And then why is that important? And we take them, we chunk them up, and then we chunk them back down a little bit. And it really gets back. And I just did that. Again, guys, just so you know, the reason we know this stuff is because we've done it and continue to do it on a regular basis. Because this is not a one and done, guys. This is not like you learn it once, you do it once, and you're done. You got to be willing to, because once you achieve one thing, you're going to want to do something else. So learn the fundamentals, right? This is what we talked about in the last session about building that foundation, because once we build this foundation, and then we get up from the basement, then into the garage, then into the, the first floor of the building and the lobby, and then your other floors, the mezzanines, and then you got the first living floor, second, and then all the way up to floor 10, then floor 15, 20. That's how they build skyscrapers, but they don't start on the 10th floor. That's what we spoke about last week. Now, once you have those fundamentals down, once you move to it, hey, I want to take the plan to another level, you just repeat the process, but now you already know how to do it. Does that make sense? All right. And that's what we're talking about here. That's why this is so, again, is it fundamental stuff? Yes. And as the late, great Jim Rohn said, this was one of the funniest things I ever heard him say. There are no new fundamentals. He said, people are not manufacturing antiques. That's not how it works. Fundamentals do not go out of style. The fundamentals that we need. Now, it may have changed, as Larry Thompson told me, the strategies remain the same, but the tactics may change because it's like the same thing about, and I probably mentioned this to you in one of our chats. My dad was the head of his household in 1940. He was 16 years old. His father passed away. He was the eldest male. Boom, it falls on him, right? That's how it worked back then. And so that was in 1940. That was 82 years ago. Now, I've been the head of the household for a while, but if I compare what the head of a household in 2022 does to 1940, yeah, strategically, it's the same. But tactically, it's very different, right? I mean, people used to get paid every week. That doesn't happen. I remember when a house would cost, you could buy, 50 years ago, you could get a house for $10,000. Can't do that now. That's not even a down payment on a house, right? That's not even a car.
Excuse me. You just reminded me of the conversation we had last week. When I said that, I went away and spent 3 years relearning the marketing landscape and all this new social media that was coming on a few years ago. I wanted to get to the end of it and realize that I already knew it. The only thing that had changed was the tools, the tactics, social media.
Yeah. I mean, I was talking with this young guy. John was helping me with some stuff on the, on my end. And see, guys, this is the thing. See, Pat and I are still learning. We are, shall we say, mature adults. We're not children. We don't need to get into that. But we're at a stage, even at the stages of our careers, we're still learning, and especially now, because folks, here's the deal. Things are going to continue to change. Paul Zane Pilzer touched on this in his book, Unlimited Wealth. I've talked about him ad nauseum. He was brilliant. In 1990, he talked about how technology will change everything we do. And he's right. And it has. And especially look at the way, I mean, can you even remember when you didn't have a smartphone? Right? I mean, when did you not have your banking on your phone? When did you not have, I remember this is funny. Even PayPal's kind of outdated because we were sending money to Gabi. My daughter, as you know, she's in Newcastle in the UK. We were sending money via PayPal, and it takes too long and it's too expensive. There's a new wire service out where you can send money anywhere in the world in minutes for pennies on the dollar. It was like less than 50% of what it cost me to send it through PayPal. because when they nailed me when we were changing it from dollars to pounds, and you know, the exchange rate and then the fee they charge. But this company doesn't do that. They give you whatever the rate is at the moment. You get that rate, and then it was like, I think to send $3 to $300 was like $1.69. That was amazing, right? But that's technology. That's how we can do all these things. So folks, that technology is changing as you're watching this. So but the fundamentals and the strategies don't change. If you stay on top of the tools, you're going to be able to stay ahead of the game. Kids coming out of college, they're going to be behind. College is going to change, in my opinion, because by the time they get out of college, unless you're going to school for like exercise science or medical, be a doctor, a specific type of engineer, even engineering, a lot of these over here, we have in the US, we have these technical schools. So instead of going for 4 years to college and coming out with $250,000 in debt, you go to tech school for 6 months and you're employable.
That's TAFE over here.
Yeah. So, I mean, so it's there, but I mean, this is cool. I love stuff like this because focus, you know, control your focus, and you can accelerate your results. It's faster than ever before because of technology, because of, if you have a good game plan, but like Pat pointed out a few minutes ago, you've got to have your vision down, know what it is and why it's important to you. And I will add on that you must know who you are in relation to it, so that you can know what changes you have to make. Because if you were capable of achieving it and just had the vision, then if it was all about just wanting it bad enough, then every kid would have a pony, right? And we know that not every kid gets a pony. So, but when you find out who you are and who you are in relation to it, that makes a big difference as well. But figure out where you're going, or else you're just going to be spinning your wheels, and we'll have the same conversation next year.
Now, there's this, just been thinking here, talking about, you know, you get what you want in what you put out there. And this topic of there is why you need to focus on what you really want. And it just got me thinking, because I went through that whole process a couple of years ago. And it actually, it's a mindset. If you can understand what it is that your goal is, and then step into that, what does it look like, feel like, etc., it actually then is like a ripple effect on other parts of your life, because your mind has changed. It's not got putting the barriers in the way, the negatives in the way, etc. And I'll just give this the very, very simple way that, you know, another part of my life, it had a dramatic influence, I'm touching wood, is that you hear about these people who find it extremely easy to find a car park in the busiest place in town. And I was going through a stretch, had a friend, I was in Melbourne before COVID hit. And whenever I was around, I would be given a call going, I found a car park. And it wasn't the fact that I'd found a car park, it was that the car parking space was directly outside every time where I wanted to be. And now you just go, you know, like you drive around and people go, oh, I'm not going to find a car park. And I just go, one's going to appear. Yeah, you know, you just know. So
it certainly has an impact on what you put out there, right? And that's the thought, right? That, so if you're focusing, again, you can't plant watermelons and expect to get roses. I mean, that's, you know, watermelons are good but if you're wanting roses, you got to plant roses. You got to plant the seed of where's the parking spot, or the car park, as you guys would say, right? But I know exactly what you mean. I've got friends like that too. Everywhere they go, they find parking. It's never a question. And it's always relatively close to what they want to do. Not right out in front like yours was, but it's relatively close. And that works in everything else though. I mean, because focus on what you want, not, you know, actually what we could do next week a little bit, we might want to talk about this and just talk about the concept, because we're already at 32 minutes. So the concept of focusing on what you want and what you really want is kind of how we started today, because so many people focus on what they think they want, and it's not really what they want. And we kind of talked about this before the call started too a little bit. And so we might want to do that for next week, is just start next week. We'll do a double whammy on the focus, because, or at least maybe recapping the focus a little bit, and then covering the concept of what is it that you really want? How do you know what you really want? And how do we tie that in there? Because that's something that Once people get clear on the difference between the nice to haves and the must haves, that makes a huge difference as well. And that's what also holds their focus, because it's something that they want, they love, they need, they're driven, that whole, like athletes, right? When they want that gold medal. Somebody asked me one time, how much gold is in your gold medals? And I said, well, not much. It's plated gold, but it's not the medal that's worth it. It's what it took me to get it. That's where the value is in what it took me to get that medal.
Now, I'm going to challenge you here, because one of the words you used was the word need. Okay, I know what you're saying, but if you approach things with the focus of needing something, it's not actually the same as a focus of it's mine.
Right. Absolutely. No, good catch. No, and you're right. And this is why, see, guys, it's not about being perfect. It's about progress, not perfection. That's another thing that people go after. They're looking for that perfect model. Doesn't work that way, right? Again, I got the education the hour before this started. This guy, and John was telling me, he said, it's not about, he said, the first couple times you do this particular marketing process, he said, you might not get anything. It's not about that. It's just about testing and being in the game. And that's the thing. If you're not in the game, you're not going to win. That's how you win the game, is you got to be in the game. You got to be trying, you got to be pushing, you got to be wanting, you got to be learning, constantly learning. Surround yourself with good people too. That's another thing. You cannot hang out with people who are not successful doing what you want to do and expect that group. And I'm not saying kick out your friends and divorce your wife or your husband or your spouse, but you got to surround yourself with like-minded people. You cannot, what's the old saying? If you lay down with dogs, you come up with fleas. Right. And so you got to surround yourself. Yeah. Well, sometimes you got to be a little harsh.
Yes. Oh, I know.
Right?
Sometimes
you got to be harsh, and you got to be out. You have to call it what it is and say, you can't. When I was competing, when I was a young man, I was in my early 20s, and upstate New York, cold in the winter, hot in the summer, and beautiful in between with spring and fall. And, you're at that age where you're going out to the clubs, you're going out to the pubs, you're going out to the, people are having cocktails and meeting and listening to music and having fun. And my friends used to say all the time, hey, you got to come out with us. I said, no. You guys, if I had to work, that was one thing. If I was working at the bar, that's one thing, but I still went home and went to bed. We're going to go have to an after party. I'm not going. I got to run in the morning. Because if I stayed out till 2 a.m. working at the bar, I still was expected by my teammates to be there at 5:30 or 6 a.m., whatever the time was to run. I was expected to be there, ready to go. Bells on, right? And so I was able to, I don't want to say eliminate, because there's ways to do it. And again, if you're married, I'm not suggesting in any way, shape, or form that you divorce your spouse or fire your family and never talk to them. But I didn't have people around me that were positive. And sometimes it was more because they were trying to joke, but it doesn't help, right? When you're people that are close to you, piss on your dreams, for lack of a better word, not to be vulgar, but I mean, it doesn't, even if they're joking, it doesn't come across like that. So I limited my conversations with people about what my dream was. My dream was to make the Olympic team and win an Olympic gold medal. Now, I didn't make it, got pretty close, but didn't make it, didn't quite get there. And again, I'm better off for having that experience. It was wonderful. But I was willing to give up the pubs. I was willing to give up that cute girl that you like is going to be there and she wants to see you at this party and she really wants to talk to you. You can meet her. I said, well, it'll have to be another time because I've got to get up in the morning. I'm not going to go out and get stinking drunk and smell like cigarette smoke just for a girl. I mean, we can go have lunch. Well, no, she's going to be at the party and you didn't go see her. Doesn't matter. My value was on, my drive was so strong for that. And then from that, of course, and here's the thing, all the people, they don't mean, and I say that you don't fire your friends or people, you can limit your exposure to them because they don't mean bad. My friends were thinking that that was a good thing to hook me up with this girl, for example. But later, 10 years, 20 years later, they're saying, wow, man, you were so disciplined. You were so focused. Nothing was going to stop you. You went to the Olympic Center, you got there, you were on ESPN, we saw you on TV, we saw all this cool stuff and said, hey, that's our friend, Yeah, because I wasn't out drinking like a fool with them every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night. And so I did surround myself with other people. Now, that was one of the things that when I made a move when I left the Olympic Center, I didn't surround myself with the right people. But I wouldn't change anything because of where I am today, right? If I went back and changed that in 1987, maybe you and I wouldn't be having this conversation today. But the point is, surround yourself with good people. And we'll talk a little bit more about that because, oh my gosh, I'm prattling on. We're at 38 minutes after. Let's do this. Are you okay? Are you game with that? Let's maybe like continue the focus on especially on what you really want and talking about the differences between the must-haves and the nice-to-haves. Do you think that's a good track to take?
Yeah, we can also pick up on what you were just saying about surrounding yourself with the right people as part of your focus, because I can give you a case study of somebody who spent 10 years looking for a new premises and achieved that within 18 months after working with me by changing their focus.
That's what it's all about, bringing value to these people watching this right now, whether live or recorded.
And then there's also in one of our packages, how to negotiate anything. There is a whole section on focus. So we there may be something that if people come along, they may be able to we gift a download a sample of that focus section.
What we can even do is some shared screens and stuff like that, and show them maybe give them some teasers for that. Awesome, yep. Pat. As always, good. It's a pleasure. Thank you so very much. Now I'm going to make sure I do this properly this time and not just end the whole thing. But listen, folks. Thank you for tuning into this special edition of the Performance Zone. We've got at least 5 more because we're adding on an extra one for next week that we're going to morph into the subsequent weeks following. These will be continuing if you're here on the live time, you know the right time. It's going to be on the same Zoom link. So great for that one. And remember, in the meantime, put everything you have into everything you do because the best is yet to come. We'll see you next time.